"Hello there," as Obi-Wan Kenobi once famously said. Or was it more than once? I can't remember. So, it seems to me that DC Studios, Gunn, Safran, WB and Zaslav all think all publicity is good publicity. Are they armouring up Jeff Snider, the leaker, the scooper, with all this information to keep their film, Superman, to keep DC Studios, to keep them in the public social media consensus, the conversation? Because if they're not purposely giving all this info to Snider to leak, then they have a big problem. And his name is Jeff Snider, because he's coming out with all this information. And then you've got Russia. These are two old Collider bros, and they have their connections to the industry, and they're coming out with all this information. And for me personally, it isn't a good thing, whether it's about the delays of the Batman 2, rumours that Gunn and WB want to merge the Reeseverse with the DCU, which Gunn keeps on denying. The more they deny something in New Hollywood, the more true it is. By the way, there is no smoke without fire. I'm sorry to all the biased content creators who are there for James Gunn, who are defending the indefensible with all their coke. I'm sorry, there is no smoke without fire. But it wouldn't surprise me if Gunn and his cohorts at WB and DC Studios are telling Snider and the other bros to be leaking this information out, to be keeping them in the conversation. So I don't actually know where to start, because we spoke deeply about the Batman 2 being delayed by 1 year. But that, today, the conversation isn't over, by the way. Should we leave that to the second part of today's show? Yes, because we need to talk about rumours of a negative test screening. That depends who you talk to, because to me it didn't sound very negative, but I don't know where we're at anymore. So here it goes. There was a reported test screening for some people. I don't know who they were. I'm assuming they wasn't clones and they were real people. But anyway, these people compared an unfinished film without much VFX to the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie and the first Captain America. Captain America, the First Avenger. Two movies I really like. But if you're comparing a Superman movie with the Mummy, is that concerning? Is that a good thing, or is that a bad thing? It was deemed by reports that it was a negative thing. But let's think about this. Could there be a mummy in this Superman movie? Well, maybe. I mean, Gunn's capable of anything. We've already seen a Kaiju in the first teaser trailer for Superman. So who knows? And the VFX for that looked absolutely fantastic. But what I think they mean is the dynamic between Clark, Superman, Lois and Jimmy. Because in the Mummy movie, you've got the Brendan Fraser character, you've got the love interest. It's not fair to just call her a love interest, but you know. And then you've got the brother, who's played by John Hannah, who's a tremendous British actor, by the way. And they make a great threesome. Not like that. I don't know what happened when the director called cut, but not in the film. But anyway, I think maybe they're comparing it to that dynamic. So I don't think that's a bad comparison or anything to worry about. Then they compared it to Captain America, the First Avenger. Again, a film I really like. Marvel fans, die-hard Marvel fans at the time, didn't like Captain America, the First Avenger. I think the film has aged really well, and people have, come to the plate. A bit like The Phantom Menace. People appreciate Star Wars The Phantom Menace a lot more now than they did when it was first released. So I don't think those comparisons are problematic. In fact, when Zack Snyder and, Alan Heinberg were developing the first Wonder Woman film, they did look at Captain America, the First Avenger. And actually, you can see, lots of similarities to that film in Wonder Woman 2017. It's what makes it such a great movie. No problem there. Anyway, they came back with a second report. Obviously, they got told off for saying it was just negative. The reactions were just negative. So they said it was also compared to Guardians of the Galaxy. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. I love all the comic book movies and Peacemaker that James Gunn's done. They're not my favourite CBMs, but I have enjoyed them. He does make good, entertaining movies with thought-provoking commentary in them if you're paying attention. I like what he does. But I think it's more worrying and problematic if you're comparing a Superman movie with Guardians of the Galaxy than comparing it to a really good mummy movie and not the Tom Cruise one. If they were comparing it to the Tom Cruise one, I would be worried. And Captain America, the First Avenger, it's a good thing to compare them to those films. But Guardians of the Galaxy, isn't this what we didn't want Gunn to do? We didn't want Gunn to be a one-trick pony. We've been talking about this for the longest of times. Here's the thing. I've been very consistent from day one. I've always believed that James Gunn will give us a good, okay Superman movie. And there's no question, it's not going to be a bad movie. We can tell it's not going to be a bad movie through that first teaser, even though you can make anything look good. Even a bad movie can look good in a trailer, and that's a fact. But I don't think it's going to be a bad movie. It's going to be good. I think his other CBMs are good, very good. I wouldn't call them great, but very good. I enjoy them. And I think it will be a very good, at the very least, a very good movie. But that isn't good enough. As Bill Murray says in Scrooge, that isn't good enough. They've got to want to see it. They've got to think they're going to die if they don't see it, whatever he says. I'm paraphrasing now. Anyway, right? So this needs to be great. This needs to be one of the greatest CBMs ever made. This has to be the best Superman piece of media ever made. That's what James Gunn has to do. Someone asked me a very pertinent question the other day. They said, do you think that the trailer views can be faked? You can't fake views. It's not possible. The only thing they could have done is pay a lot of people to watch it repeatedly again and again. That's the only way. But if you look at the other films with the kind of similar views, they've all gone to at least make $1 billion. So you've got Avengers, you've got Age of Ultron, you've got Avengers Age of Ultron, you've got Endgame, who made well over $1 billion. You've got a film like what was out last year, Deadpool and Wolverine. So when trailers normally get these views, they make at least $1 billion. So you would say it's a foregone conclusion. This movie is going to make at least $1 billion because of the interest from this first teaser trailer. I'll tell you something now, if this movie makes under $1 billion, then maybe they did fake the views. Maybe they got people to watch this trailer again and again and again. Get your goggles out and watch carefully, because July may seem to be 7 or 8 months away, but it isn't long at all. I remember when there was 18 months to go, a year to go, 7 months. It's over half a year, but it's going to come quicker than James Gunn can put up another thread. So, yeah, now there's been another report denying there was any test screenings for the public. Very, very interesting. Now, of course, if I get to see a test screening for Superman, I have been to test screenings before, I will let you know. I won't spoil the movie, but I'll tell you what I thought about it at the very least. At this moment in time, I don't have a chance of going to see a test screening of Superman. I haven't heard of any myself. That doesn't mean there hasn't been any. Now, we know there's been screenings for execs. Now, the execs at WB are slightly different when they were when Man of Steel was tested to execs. But I can tell you something. Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice and Man of Steel were loved by Warner Brothers execs. The only reason they went against Snider in the end was because of the reaction and the box office. They wanted to make more money, and the divisive reaction really, really scared them. But in terms of a studio, Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman were really, really liked by the studio. And a big shame what happened to that franchise in the end. I think part of the problem was losing Nolan and Goya after Man of Steel, and Snider was developing a lot of that story. Snider's a visual director. He should always be in charge of the visual storytelling, not the written narrative. That's when it goes wrong for Zack Snider in movies. I love BVS. I'm happy it exists. But it would have been better if Goyer and Nolan were allowed, to cook with a Man of Steel 2, with Snider, plotting the visual journey. And it's a shame that never happened. But back to this. So we need to talk about the Batman 2 yet again, because this is another very interesting situation. Now, there's a lot of people who are there for James Gunn who believe everything is okay. If James Gunn was trying to put out a fire, James Gunn would tell you it's just an orange bright light and everything is okay. He's been talking about the 5-year, 6-year gap between the Batman and the Batman 2 being perfectly a good average, a space, a space between sequels. It happens a lot, he said. When? You used to have big gaps between, an original and a sequel, but it doesn't happen so much anymore. It's actually very, very rare. It's not an average. But let's not get it twisted. I don't give an shit about the gap between the Batman and the Batman 2. If you announce a date and you stick to it, you can make me wait for a freaking 10 years, right? I'll wait for Matt Reeves to cook. You keep on delaying the movie, and that's what's utterly suspicious. So there was this article in the Hollywood Reporter which the Shills are trying to use as a receipt. You can't use articles by someone who has nothing to do with the industry WBDC studios as a receipt. Originally in the article there was a paragraph about the Batman 2 not being part of the DCU. Then that draft vanished and it was deleted. Then they put it back in. Apparently it was deleted by mistake. I'll tell you what actually happened. The studio told them to cut that bit out, and then when all the fans went ape, they told the Hollywood Reporter to put the article back in. So for all you shills out there, an article isn't a receipt. As I said earlier, there is no smoke without fire. There is something rancid about this Batman 2 situation. He's denied that The Brave and the Bold has been delayed. How can you delay something that's never been in development? They haven't written any script. Maybe he's been given pitches. That's not development. That's not developing a movie. Oh, I won't do anything at DC Studios unless I get a good script. Yeah, that sounds really good in practice, mate. But the reality is, it's all BS. Isn't it, James? There is no plans. As I said months ago about The Brave and the Bold, they're not even planning to make a Brave and the Bold movie. The bloke who's supposed to be directing it is told us he may go and make a smaller movie while he's waiting for them to get their act together. But I think Andy Muschietti will never direct the Brave and the Bold movie, because at this moment in time, it doesn't exist. But as I keep on saying, it will be very interesting if we get a DCU Batman cameo in the Superman movie, and it will be interesting, who that will be. Lots of people on the internet keep on asking, should Robert Pattinson be the DCU Batman? This is a question that James Gunn, DC Studios and WB themselves should never have allowed to be asked. As soon as Gunn came in, if he's got the control he claims he has, right, that he's the studio and he makes the decisions along with Peter, he should have said from the very beginning, Matt, you either merge with us or there is no Batman 2. Yes, you've got to be ruthless. You have got to be ruthless. You cannot have two Batmen. You can't. It's a ridiculous idea, and the studio know it. DC Studios know it. Safran knows it. Gunn knows it. And Grace Randolph saying, well, Matt Reeves and James Gunn are two peas in a pod. Just because that's the way it looks like publicly doesn't make it the truth, everyone. As I say, there is no smoke without fire. Something very, very dodgy is going on.